Hi, this is Lindsay. I'm the Learning Content Manager for Because Learning. I'm here to give you a brief introduction to our 7th grade Science and Math unit. Let's get started. Each of our units comes aligned with the NGS standards. The 7th grade Science and Math unit aligns with the physical science, life science, engineering, technology, and the application of science, as well as Common Core mathematics. The NGS standards can be found by scrolling to the bottom of an experiment and clicking on the experiment guide. The experiment guide contains information such as grade level, group size, essential questions, materials, pre-work that needs to be done before the lesson is taught, and at the end of the experiment guide gives you the specific NGS standards for that experiment. In addition to the experiment guide, the bottom of each experiment also contains links to troubleshooting tips and a help center in case you get stuck or encounter a problem, as well as a link to our community discussion where you can post pictures of your students, as well as any tips or tricks for improvement. Car crash barrier testing is an experiment that has the students building a barrier that will absorb shock from an impact of a car rolling down a ramp. The students will use data from the accelerometer to determine whose cushion absorbs the most force from the impact. The magnets lesson has the students using magnets and the magnetometer. Students will explore if quantity of magnets and distance from the magnetometer sensor affects the strength of the magnetic field. This experiment comes with a worksheet where students can record their data so that they can make interpretations. Ash snakes is different from any other experiment in the unit because it works best as a classroom demonstration. In this experiment, students will observe chemical change and physical change when heat is applied to a mixture of baking soda and sugar. Sound waves has the students wiring up a piezo speaker and then using that piezo speaker and the Arduino sketch to create different sounds. In the experiment titled Will It Conduct, the students will build a circuit using the breadboard and the Arduino, and then they will gather things from around the classroom and test them to see if they conduct electricity. Have you ever wondered if temperature affects mold growth? Moldie But Goodie has the students exploring this question using pieces of bread in a Ziploc bag, placing one in a warm area and one in a cold area, and using data from the temperature sensor. The students will log their observations over 10 days to see if temperature affects mold growth. In RGB ratios, decimals, and percents, the students will wire up a circuit that uses the RGB, red, green, blue, LED. The students will then alter the code so that they get different ratios of red, green, and blue and make different colors. There is a worksheet included with this experiment that helps the students keep track of the ratios, the decimals, and the corresponding percentages of red, green, and blue that make each different color that they create. In the experiment titled G-force, the students experiment with the accelerometer and interpret the data to see who can generate the most G's. In the experiment titled Tea Time, the students will use the luminosity sensor and a cup of tea. They will use the data to interpret the effects of diffusion on luminosity. Have you ever wondered if time of year and time of day affect the amount of light that can get inside of a house? In this experiment, students will use the luminosity sensor and a cutout of a house along with a flashlight to simulate the light shining on a house at different parts of the day. In How Steady Are Your Hands, the students will build a game using the Arduino and a breadboard that uses the basic concepts of a circuit to test the steadiness of your hands. Egg Drop is an experiment where the students will build their best cushion and then wire up the accelerometer in the sensor board to determine which cushion absorbs the most energy from the impact. The experiment titled Dancing Slime is a different experiment than any of the others in the unit because it works best as a classroom demonstration. Students create a non-Newtonian fluid using cornstarch and water. Then the students test the effects of sound on the non-Newtonian fluid by placing it in plastic wrap in a speaker and playing a 40 Hz tone. That gives you a brief introduction to our 7th grade Science and Math unit. We recommend that before you teach any lesson to your student, you go through the experiment as if you were the student. You wire up the circuit, you collect the data, you answer the questions. That way you'll be able to anticipate where your students need extra assistance. Have fun experimenting.